just once again, any questions that we might be able to answer? Yes, Mark?
What's the current status of what's going on in the school systems around New Mexico right now? I know that when I first came back from wherever I was, to New Mexico, kind of come and gone several times, I taught school for a little bit before getting into higher education. And I remember taking kids from Cesar Reyes Martin Elementary School, 5th grade class, and they got into space camp. This was back in 1993, something like that. And then we did a program out on Kirtland Air Force Base where they had a classroom set up there with flight simulators and stuff. There's just been a lot of things that have happened towards aerospace and aviation. Do you know of anything that's happening right now in various school systems? I guess I'm just looking at this instead of maybe reinventing the wheel. How do we work with what's working?
Absolutely, how do we leverage what we already have to keep us going? Great point, Mark. I don't know what's happened in education in New Mexico the last 5 years. I can speak. I've been in it 20, but I've been a superintendent the last 5 years, and my budget's gone from, I started with $12 million my first year, and I'll start this next year with $8 million. And so what's happened is we haven't cut programs, but when someone retires, we haven't replaced them. And so there's just not a lot of money in our school budgets to make things like that happen. I know we have the La Luz Academy at Kirtland Air Force Base, which is still up and running and going well, and I need to make good contacts with them. But there's just not a lot of, with No Child Left Behind, we worried about two things: testing them in math and reading, and that's what we did. We put all of our energy toward passing those silly tests at the end of the year. And frankly, I don't think any test can explain what happens in a school every day, because we feed those kids, we love those kids, we do that. So there's a lot of good things. I'm trying to get me on my soapbox, so I'll try not to get on my soapbox, but there's a lot of things that we do in schools every day that are great for kids. And there's a lot of things going on in pockets. We talk about that all the time. We have pockets of excellence here and there. But as far as an organized statewide effort to bring STEM programs and to bring aerospace and aviation programs into schools, there is not one that I'm aware of, or we've signed up already. And that's what the effort here is, to organize and build something that can be significant for every school in New Mexico, whether you're in Roy or Mosquero, little tiny school districts, or all the way to the Albuquerque public schools and that kind of thing. Yes, sir, back in the corner.
To tell you guys too is that these pockets exist. For instance, did you guys realize that Albuquerque has a charter school that Scott Drasserud had started for students to have almost free flight training? He's an excellent grant writer. He's written grants so these kids can actually, high school kids can actually fly airplanes for $50 an hour, which includes the pilot and the airplane. That's free in aviation terms. So these pockets do exist out there. It's just that the communication, which this committee, I think, will bring everything together so that we can communicate, we can talk, and we can figure out, okay, what are available? CNM down in Roswell. Just to put you on the spot a little bit, you didn't bring anybody by CNM, and the reason why is you probably didn't know about us. Absolutely. And that's what this is about, is us to be able to communicate so that he can call me up, or Mr. Broadus up, and say, hey, I got 50 kids, I want to go ahead and stumble all over your aviation school so they can see that. So that's what I'm talking about as well as you.
So you're absolutely right, and I didn't feel like you put me on the spot. That's the problem. We need an organization to be the vehicle to move this thing forward, and I think this can be the organization, this group of people in this room. And we'd love to bring our kids to see your programs as we go forward. So, any other questions, answers? Yes, sir.
Talk about formal education here, but how can informal groups help out with this Act 9? I belong with Mount Rocket Group, Cruises. We do outreach a lot, and I'd like to see how we can help out.
Mr. Giron, that's exactly what we want to do. I would love to have a group like your group in Raton helping light that fire in kids, because you know, sitting in a classroom, listening to someone drone on about, you know, the concepts, don't cut it. Hands-on. I'll tell you a story. I hired a shop teacher. I hired a science teacher. His whole life he wanted to be a shop teacher when I was a middle school principal. And I said, okay, great. I said, come on over, but I want you to teach science in shop, because I want my science scores to go. He said, no problem. So they started building little model race cars. Okay, little CO2 powered race cars where you puncture the CO2 tube and they shoot across the floor. And so they started building those, and we would have classroom competitions. Okay, and then we'd have a classroom champion race car. Okay, then the classroom champions would go against the other classes, and pretty soon we'd have a school champion in these little model race cars shooting across the floor. And it was the coolest thing ever. I had a little 8th grade girl, special ed girl, not a top-end student. Okay. And she took 2nd place in the school. And she comes up to me afterwards. She's holding this little card in her hand, and she says, you know, if I'd have had a little bit less overall mass, and if I would have moved my mass a little bit farther back in the car, I think I would have gotten more initial acceleration, and I probably would have won this. And this is a little special ed girl talking like that. And so that's where you can help, is right there. That kind of thing is, you know, it was wonderful for that school. And our science scores outpaced the state 25 percentage points because I had a shop teacher teaching science. And that's that hands-on stuff. She would never, you could have taught her about speed and acceleration till you were blue in the face on a chalkboard. But when she built a race car and fired that thing and it went across the floor at 75 miles an hour, and we bought an electronic timing system, so I mean, it was cool. It was so much fun. And race day was a big celebration at Heights Middle School when I was the principal. We loved it. But that's the kind of stuff. So building rockets, sending them up, that's the kind of lighting the fire that we need to do. So I think community groups, informal education groups such as yourself are a huge part of this. I think business and industry, I've got my friends from the construction industry here today. I think you're all part of this. And it's just going to, how can we cobble it together and keep it moving forward and get the word out so that we know what's available. Because I would absolutely love to bring my kids to CNM, and whether they ever go into your program, I just want them to step foot on a college campus. And like I said earlier, I have kids that have never been north of Pueblo or south of Las Vegas. So stepping foot on a college campus is a pretty big step for those kids. And we have that, Ratone's not unique. We have that all over the state. And so that's where we can all work together. And it's just, so I think the way you can get involved is volunteer, help us with one of our committees, and let's just keep incrementally moving this thing forward as we go. So I hope I